Chosen one. Now that you understand that the competition around you is quiet, the next thing you must understand is why it even started. Because most of the time, nobody wakes up one day and decides openly that they want to compete with you. What actually happens is much more subtle than that. The competition begins the moment your life starts reflecting progress that others did not expect from you. There was a time when people looked at you and did not feel threatened at all. They saw your kindness, your patience, your quiet nature, your willingness to support others, and they assumed you would always stay in the background. They assumed you would always remain the helpful one, the understanding one, the calm one who never pushed for recognition. And because of that assumption, nobody felt the need to measure themselves against you. But something changed. Your discipline started producing results. Your mindset started shifting. Your peace became noticeable. Your growth stopped being theoretical and started becoming visible. And the moment your growth becomes visible, comparison begins. Some people do not even realize they are doing it. They start asking silent questions in their mind. How did they move ahead so fast? Why are people starting to respect them more? Why does it look like things are opening for them now? What are they doing differently? Those questions slowly turn into comparison, and comparison quietly turns into competition. Chosen one. The dangerous thing about quiet competition is that it rarely looks like hostility. People who are secretly competing with you will often stay friendly on the surface. They will still talk to you. They will still smile around you. They will still behave normally in public settings. But inside, they begin measuring themselves against every step you take. If you succeed, they feel pressure. If you improve, they feel urgency. If people respect you, they feel challenged. And instead of confronting those feelings honestly, they start running a silent race. This is why sometimes you will notice strange behavior patterns. You share an idea, and suddenly someone else tries to present the same idea louder. You achieve something, and suddenly someone feels the need to announce their own achievement immediately after. You stay focused on your work, and suddenly someone becomes unusually concerned with proving they are doing more. It is not always hatred. Sometimes it is insecurity. Sometimes it is someone realizing that the version of you they once underestimated is no longer the person standing in front of them. Chosen one. When favor starts appearing on your life, two types of people become very visible. The first group becomes inspired. They watch your discipline and decide to improve their own life. They see your consistency and they start building their own. They learn from your example and they respect your progress. But the second group becomes competitive. They do not want to learn from your progress. They want to outrun it. They do not want to grow with you. They want to measure themselves against you. And instead of asking what they can learn from your journey, they begin asking how they can stay ahead of you. This is where quiet rivalry begins. But chosen one, here is the truth that many people do not understand. You cannot win a race you were never meant to run. The moment you begin competing with people who are secretly competing with you, you lose your biggest advantage. Your advantage was never speed. Your advantage was alignment. Your advantage was the fact that you were moving according to purpose instead of comparison. When you stay aligned with purpose, your path is clear. You know what you are building. You know what you are improving. You know what direction your life is moving in. But the moment you start reacting to someone else's pace, everything becomes distorted. Your decisions become reactive instead of intentional. Your focus becomes divided. Your peace becomes unstable. This is exactly why quiet competitors want your attention. They want you to notice them. Because the moment you start noticing them too much, your focus shifts away from growth and into comparison. And comparison is the fastest way to slow down someone who was previously moving in clarity. Chosen one. The strongest position you can have in a situation like this is calm indifference. Not arrogance, not hostility, not confrontation, just focus. The truth is that the people who are quietly competing with you are already fighting a battle inside their own mind. They are watching your progress, measuring themselves, questioning their own position, and trying to maintain their image at the same time. That is exhausting. The moment you join that race, you inherit their exhaustion. But the moment you refuse to run that race, something interesting happens. You keep growing, they keep reacting. You stay steady, they keep adjusting. You keep building, they keep comparing. And eventually the difference becomes obvious. Because real progress compounds over time, while competition, driven by insecurity, burns energy quickly. Chosen one. The way you win against quiet competition is not by defeating the person. It is by refusing the game. When someone competes with you loudly, the conflict is clear. But when someone competes with you silently, the temptation is to prove yourself. That temptation is the trap. Your real victory is focus. While others are watching you, you keep working. While others are measuring you, you keep improving. While others are comparing, you keep aligning with what God placed in front of you. And the truth is simple. The most frustrating opponent for a quiet competitor is someone who never acknowledges the competition at all. Because the moment you stop reacting, their entire strategy loses power. But there is something even deeper happening here. In the next part, you are going to understand why God sometimes allows quiet competitors to appear around chosen ones, and how those situations actually accelerate your growth instead of slowing it down. Chosen one. There is another reason God sometimes allows quiet competition to appear around you, and most people completely miss it. They assume the situation is simply about rivalry or jealousy, but in reality, it often becomes a tool that reveals the difference between purpose-driven growth and ego-driven progress. When someone is quietly competing with you, they are constantly watching what you do. They analyze your progress, they measure your speed, and they try to match or exceed your results. But here's the key difference. Their motivation is comparison, while your path is alignment. Comparison is unstable because it depends on someone else's position. Alignment is stable because it depends on direction. The moment someone bases their movement on what you are doing, they lose control of their own pace. If you move faster, they feel pressure to accelerate. If you slow down to build something carefully, they feel anxious that they might fall behind. If you receive recognition, they feel the need to prove themselves. Their focus becomes reactive instead of intentional. That is why quiet competition drains people so quickly. It forces them to keep adjusting their direction based on someone else's progress. Chosen one. When you stay aligned with your own purpose, you avoid that trap completely. Your growth is not built on beating someone. Your growth is built on becoming who God called you to be. That difference may seem small at first, but over time, it becomes massive. A person who runs on comparison eventually burns out because they are chasing validation. A person who runs on purpose becomes stronger because they are building something real. This is why you must be careful not to react emotionally when you sense someone measuring themselves against you. The temptation is to prove something. You might feel the urge to show that you deserve the recognition you are receiving. You might feel the urge to demonstrate your ability, your intelligence, your discipline, or your results. But the moment you start proving yourself to someone who is secretly competing with you, you step into their game. And the moment you enter their game, your focus shifts away from growth and into performance. The truth is that the strongest response to quiet competition is quiet focus. While others are watching you, you continue building. While others are measuring your progress, you keep improving your process. While others are trying to move faster than you stay consistent with the direction God placed in front of you. Over time, this creates a gap that competition cannot close. People who compete react to situations, but people who build purpose create momentum. Chosen one. The most frustrating opponent for a quiet competitor is someone who refuses to acknowledge the competition at all. They want your attention because attention confirms the race exists. If you begin reacting to them, you validate their position. But if you remain calm, focused, and aligned with your own assignment, their strategy collapses. They are left competing with someone who is not even running the same race. This is why the real way to win without fighting is simple but powerful. You do not try to defeat them. You simply outgrow the mindset that created the competition in the first place. When you stay disciplined, when you keep your attention on your work, when you refuse to compare yourself to anyone else's pace, your progress becomes steady and difficult to disrupt. Over time, people who were quietly competing will either become inspired by your consistency or they will exhaust themselves trying to keep up with something they never truly understood. And that is the secret most people never realize. The chosen one does not win by attacking the competition. The chosen one wins by staying so focused on purpose that competition becomes irrelevant. Because when your life is guided by alignment instead of comparison, you are not running a race against people. You are walking a path that only you were meant to walk. Chosen one. There is another layer to this situation that most people never recognize until much later. And it is the reason you must stay calm instead of reacting to quiet competition around you. When someone begins competing with you silently, they are not only watching your results, they are also studying your behavior. They are trying to understand how you move, how you think, and how you make decisions. In their mind, if they can understand your pattern, they believe they can outperform it. But this is where they misunderstand the source of your progress. Your progress did not come from copying someone else's strategy or racing against another person's timeline. Your progress came from alignment, discipline, and consistency in the direction God placed in front of you. That type of growth cannot be copied quickly because it was built slowly through habits, patience, and internal change. Quiet competitors often underestimate that part. They believe that if they move faster or appear stronger, they will reach the same results. What they do not realize is that speed without foundation eventually collapses. That is why the chosen one must remain steady. When you stay steady, you protect the foundation that created your growth in the first place. If you start reacting emotionally to competition, you begin abandoning the process that made you strong. The enemy understands this pattern very well. He knows that if he can push you into comparison, your clarity becomes clouded. If he can push you into proving yourself, your peace becomes unstable. If he can push you into racing against people who are watching you, your focus moves away from purpose and into performance. That shift is exactly what quiet competition tries to create. It wants your attention because attention changes behavior. The moment you begin thinking about how others see you, you become more concerned with image than with progress. The moment you begin measuring your pace against theirs, you become less connected to the direction God gave you. This is why wisdom in this season looks like calm focus. Instead of responding to the atmosphere, you continue building. Instead of explaining your progress, you continue improving your work. Instead of confronting people who are comparing themselves to you, you remain disciplined in the path you are already walking. Over time, this produces a result that competition cannot replicate. Your progress becomes stable, while theirs becomes exhausting. They constantly adjust their direction depending on what they see you doing, while you remain grounded in one clear direction. That difference slowly widens the gap between you and them. The more they try to catch up through comparison, the more energy they burn. The more you continue building quietly, the more momentum you create. Momentum is something quiet competitors rarely understand, because momentum grows from consistency, not reaction. A person who reacts constantly cannot maintain consistent movement. They start strong, then they change direction, then they rush again, then they slow down. Their energy moves in waves instead of in steady growth. Meanwhile, the chosen one continues forward at a controlled pace, improving small things every day, building skill, strengthening discipline, and aligning decisions with long-term purpose instead of short-term validation. That is why winning without fighting is not about ignoring reality. It is about understanding that the real race is internal. The battle is not against the person watching you. The battle is against distraction, comparison, and the temptation to abandon your focus. Once you understand that, the pressure disappears. You realize that no one can actually compete with your path because no one else was assigned to walk it. The moment you stop reacting to silent rivalry, the entire situation changes. They may continue watching, they may continue measuring themselves against you, but their actions no longer influence your direction. And when your direction is no longer influenced by comparison, your progress becomes unstoppable. Chosen one, there is one final thing you must understand about quiet competition. And once you see this clearly, the entire situation will lose its power over your mind. Most people think the real victory is proving they are better than the people competing with them. But that mindset is exactly what traps them in the same cycle. The real victory is freedom from comparison itself. The moment you stop measuring your progress against the movement of other people, your focus becomes sharper, your energy becomes more stable, and your growth becomes far more consistent. Quiet competitors spend most of their time watching others because they believe success is about position. They constantly evaluate who is ahead, who is catching up, and who is gaining recognition. But when your life is aligned with purpose, success stops being about position and becomes about direction. Direction gives you clarity. Position creates anxiety. Direction tells you where you are going and why you are moving there. Position makes you worry about how you appear to others. This is why many people feel exhausted when they are caught in comparison. They are not building something meaningful. They are simply trying to keep up appearances. Chosen one, your strength comes from the opposite approach. Instead of looking sideways, you keep looking forward. Instead of reacting to pressure, you keep strengthening your discipline. Instead of trying to outrun someone else, you keep improving the process that moves your life forward day after day. When you live this way, something powerful begins to happen. Your progress becomes predictable because it is built on habits instead of emotion. While others rush and slow down depending on what they see around them, you keep building momentum quietly. Momentum is the real advantage most people underestimate. Small improvements, repeated consistently, create results that sudden bursts of effort cannot match. This is why many quiet competitors eventually burn out. They start by trying to prove themselves quickly, but because their energy comes from comparison, they cannot sustain it. Over time, their attention becomes divided, their motivation fluctuates, and the race they created in their mind begins to wear them down. Meanwhile, the chosen one continues moving forward with patience, strengthening skills, sharpening focus, and deepening discipline without needing to announce it. Months later, the difference becomes obvious. What looked like slow progress turns out to be strong foundation. What looked like sudden success from others turns out to be temporary momentum. This is why the real way to win without fighting is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is consistent. It is focused. It is disciplined. You continue becoming better at what you do. You continue strengthening your mindset. You continue aligning your decisions with the purpose God placed in your life. And because you are not distracted by rivalry, your energy stays invested in growth instead of reaction. Eventually, the competition fades because the people watching you realize something important. They were never actually racing against you in the first place. They were racing against their own insecurity. Once you see that clearly, you stop feeling pressure from the situation entirely. You understand that someone else's comparison cannot slow your path unless you allow it to redirect your focus. So the message for you is simple. Stay calm, stay disciplined, stay aligned with the direction God gave you. While others measure themselves against your movement, you continue building a life that does not depend on comparison at all. That is how the Chosen One wins without fighting. Chosen One. There is also a deeper psychological reason quiet competition appears around you. And once you recognize it, you will stop taking the situation personally. When people see someone progressing with clarity, discipline, and consistency, it forces them to confront the gap between who they are and who they believe they should be. That gap creates discomfort. Some people respond to that discomfort by improving themselves, but others respond by trying to reduce the gap through comparison. Instead of building the same habits that produced your growth, they try to compete with the visible results of your growth. They copy the surface instead of understanding the process. This is why quiet competition rarely produces the same outcomes as genuine self-development. People who compete usually focus on the appearance of progress, while people who grow focus on the structure behind it. And structure always outlasts appearance. Chosen One, your strength right now is that you are not building for applause. You are building for stability. You are strengthening the mindset, discipline, and patience that will continue working long after temporary attention disappears. Quiet competitors often underestimate this. They assume success is a moment when, in reality, it is a pattern. A moment can be copied. A pattern must be built. That is why many people who seem to move quickly in competition eventually slow down when the excitement fades. Their energy was driven by comparison, not by purpose. Once the comparison loses intensity, the motivation disappears with it. Meanwhile, the person who is aligned with purpose keeps moving because their motivation is internal rather than reactive. They are not trying to prove anything to anyone. They are simply becoming better at what they were called to do. Over time, this difference becomes impossible to ignore. One person keeps adjusting their path based on what others are doing, while the other person keeps strengthening the same direction day after day. Consistency compounds quietly. The person who improves a little every day will eventually surpass someone who rushes in short bursts and then slows down again. This is why God often allows chosen ones to face quiet competition. Not because you need to defeat anyone, but because the situation teaches you to guard your focus. It teaches you that distraction often arrives in subtle forms. Nobody may attack you openly. Nobody may challenge you directly. Instead, the pressure comes from comparison, from feeling watched, from sensing people measuring themselves against your progress. If you react emotionally to that pressure, your attention moves away from purpose. But if you remain calm, disciplined, and focused, the situation actually strengthens you. It forces you to build the habit of ignoring unnecessary noise. It trains your mind to stay anchored in direction, instead of reacting to atmosphere. Over time, this becomes one of your greatest advantages. A person who cannot be distracted by comparison becomes extremely difficult to stop. Their energy stays concentrated. Their decisions stay clear. Their movement stays consistent. And consistency, more than anything else, creates long-term success. So understand this clearly. The quiet competition around you is not proof that something is wrong. In many cases, it is proof that your progress has become visible enough to trigger comparison in the people around you. The goal is not to fight them. The goal is to stay focused enough that their comparison never changes your direction. When you do that, the competition eventually loses meaning because you were never running the same race to begin with. Chosen One. The final lesson in this situation is about mastery over your own attention. Attention is one of the most valuable resources you have. And quiet competition is designed to pull that attention away from your path. The moment you begin thinking constantly about who is watching you, who is comparing themselves to you, or who is trying to match your progress, your focus shifts outward instead of inward. But growth happens inward first. Discipline is built in private. Skill is strengthened in repetition. Character is formed in the decisions nobody else sees. When your attention stays on that internal work, your external results eventually speak for themselves. But when attention is divided by comparison, the internal work weakens. That is why so many people plateau when they become too concerned with proving themselves. They stop improving the structure of their life and start managing the appearance of their life. Chosen one, you are not meant to manage appearances. You are meant to build substance. Substance grows slowly, but it lasts. Appearance grows quickly, but it fades just as fast. Quiet competitors usually chase appearance because appearance can be shown immediately. They want quick recognition, quick validation, and quick results that make them feel ahead in the moment. But substance does not move that way. Substance requires patience, repetition, and long-term commitment. It requires you to keep working even when nobody is watching and no one is praising the effort yet. This is where your advantage becomes clear. While others are watching the outside, you keep strengthening the inside. While others react to the atmosphere around them, you continue reinforcing the habits that make your progress stable. Over time, this creates a difference that cannot be hidden. People who build appearance often look strong at the beginning, but their progress fades when the excitement disappears. People who build substance look slow at first, but their progress becomes unstoppable once the foundation is strong enough to support it. This is why your path may have felt quiet for a long time. God was building substance in you. He was strengthening your discipline, your patience, your focus, and your ability to move without needing constant recognition. Now that those things are forming real results, the people around you are starting to notice. Some of them feel inspired, others feel competitive, but none of that changes your assignment. Your assignment is still the same as it was before anyone began watching. Continue building, continue improving, continue strengthening the habits that move your life forward. When you stay in that mindset, quiet competition stops feeling threatening and starts feeling irrelevant. The people who compete will eventually tire themselves out because their energy depends on constantly measuring themselves against someone else. But the person who moves with purpose does not need that constant comparison. Their motivation is anchored in direction, not in rivalry. That is why the chosen one wins without fighting. Not because no one competes with them, but because they refuse to let competition decide how they move. They keep their attention on growth, their discipline on the process, and their faith on the path God placed in front of them. And when someone lives that way long enough, the outcome becomes inevitable. The noise fades, the distractions lose power, and the progress continues forward with a strength that quiet competition can never match. Chosen one, there is one more perspective you must hold if you want to move through quiet competition without losing your peace. People who compete with you silently often believe that attention equals power. They believe that if they can pull your focus toward them, even for a moment, they have already influenced your direction. That is why the most powerful response is not confrontation, not explanation, and not proving yourself. The most powerful response is neutrality. When you remain neutral, you remove the fuel that keeps comparison alive. You continue your work, your discipline, your habits, and your progress exactly the same way you would if nobody were watching at all. This stability sends a message stronger than any argument ever could. It shows that your growth was never dependent on competition in the first place. Chosen one, neutrality is misunderstood by many people. They think neutrality means weakness or passivity, but in reality, it is a sign of control. When you control your reactions, you control your energy. When you control your energy, you control your direction. And when you control your direction, other people's comparisons lose their ability to slow you down. Quiet competitors often expect some kind of reaction. They expect you to defend your position, prove your progress, or acknowledge the tension they created. When none of those reactions appear, the situation becomes confusing for them. They cannot escalate the race because you are not running. They cannot provoke a response because you are not reacting. Eventually, they are left with only two options. They either focus on improving themselves, or they lose interest in the competition entirely. Either outcome removes the pressure from your path. This is why calm focus is so powerful. It turns a potential distraction into a situation that strengthens your discipline instead. Every time you choose focus over reaction, your mind becomes stronger. Every time you ignore comparison and return to your purpose, your habits become deeper. Every time you keep building instead of responding, your momentum grows. Over time, this quiet consistency becomes the real difference between you and the people who once compared themselves to you. They were watching. You were building. They were measuring. You were improving. They were reacting. You were aligning. Eventually, that difference becomes impossible to hide. The chosen one does not win by defeating others in competition. The chosen one wins by becoming so focused on purpose that competition becomes irrelevant. When your life moves with that level of clarity, people may still watch, they may still compare, and they may still compete in silence, but none of those things can change your direction anymore. Your path remains steady, your discipline remains strong, and your progress continues forward in a way that quiet rivalry can never truly interrupt.